Welcome, friends, to a new episode of Event TV and Lighting Demystified with a focus on virtual and hybrid events, because what else are we doing in 2021 following 2020? Well, with me today, I have a amazing lady, a power lady. I am going to just introduce her and let her talk because she's going to share some of her wisdom and experience in the business of events. And she's raised and born in Twin Cities, and one of the top female entrepreneurs in Minnesota. She has been an amazing leader for Forever Bride for 9 years now, and now has started focusing on virtual and hybrid events at EideCom, empowering and supporting organizations and businesses transitioning their events to virtual and hybrid events, because we all know how much work that takes, right?
Yes.
She's also the host of her own podcast and now a featured guest on my podcast here. And it's such a great honor to welcome you and to have you with me on the air today, Ashley. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. This is very fun.
Well, it's so good to have you. And I know that you've been quite busy. I mean, it's just the first Monday in January of 2021, and probably you already slayed some dragons already today.
The alarm went off today. I didn't even hit snooze.
There we go.
Get back to
So
work.
ready for this. Yes, you were made for this. Well, to kick us off, I am going to ask you something that I usually ask all my feature podcast guests. And that obviously has to do with the challenges of the last year. So I guess the first question to kick us off is, what has been your biggest win and your biggest challenge in 2020?
This year has been interesting for all of us, and I know a lot of people like to use the word pivot. I like to use the word mutate. I feel like mutate is more of like a forced pivot, and when you mutate, you actually become something completely different, and you can't go back to the old version. And usually, a mutation happens for the better based on your surroundings. You know, I remember when March hit and everything just froze. And, you know, to give you a little background of where we were at in March, yes, I run Forever Bride. It's the easiest way to explain Forever Bride, other than a wedding community for wedding businesses. But primarily, it's like a virtual wedding expo for brides. We actually were one of the very first digital platforms in the expo space, starting back in 2012. So luckily we were already playing in the digital space, but we also do in-person networking events every month. We host a market at the Mall of America twice a year, which is a huge wedding expo with thousands of people. We've never been through anything like this before. There's not a history book to go back to reference of how do you handle some of these things. So yeah, I would actually have to say my biggest win was the team that I work with, the people that I do business with, you know, day to day in the office here. It's a very positive group.
That's good.
And I think there's power in having the right mindset and having a positive mindset versus the sky is falling, which is our natural instinct when things start to happen. And right away, we sat down, we came together and we go, what can we do? How can we change things? How can we still serve our clients, right? If you're always thinking of how can you serve others versus like, how do I get what I need, right? And right away, we were able to make some really big changes and take some of the software pieces that we had already been using and implement them in other areas. So I'd say that's actually one of our biggest wins is being able to mutate very quickly. And it wouldn't have happened without the right mindset.
Absolutely.
And obviously the hardest thing for me is I love doing life in person. I love doing business in person. I like having parties in person. You know, you and I are in the events world. We thrive from that energy of being in a room and meeting new people and getting dressed up, and having that completely stripped away from you is very hard personally. You know, and yes, Zoom is great and being able to do this, but it doesn't replace that in person, you know. So I think that was my biggest challenge from a personal level is how do I still come to work every day with that same energy, but I'm not getting that energy from the in person anymore.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think that was definitely one of my biggest personal challenges as well, even though, working from home has been a reality for me for like the last 5, 6 years. But I would always travel for events, and I would always meet my team on site, and we would have the best of times. Yes, those would be some very long days as well, right? You'd be super tired at the end of the day, 16, 18 hours days. It's
Your
just
feet hurt. You're
normal.
regretting wearing those heels.
Oh yeah, but nothing compares to that energy, like you said, and feeding off of each other's energy and exchanging, fun jokes. Even that, like as simple as that, it's like, oh, I keep talking to Alexa, came up with like a chat box, and I'm like trying to replace that. I'm like, is that really sad? As I'm thinking to myself. it's like I need to be talking to someone, or otherwise I'm going to start talking to myself, which I do that a little bit too, but that's not something that we're going to say out, for everyone to hear. Oh wait, I just did. But anyway, I totally get it. It's something that it's been quite the challenge for a lot of people that I know, and especially for I feel like extroverts have had a one little bit extra level of challenge when it comes to that. Like my husband, he's a total introvert. He's like, this is perfect. Like nobody bothering me. Oh, close me in the office and do not talk to me for like years, and I'll be just fine. Just work on my projects. Yeah, that
Right.
wouldn't be me. But so let's go then. I want to take you right from the in the beginning. You've been in the event industry and wedding industry for like forever. Basically, you grew
Yeah.
up in the industry. Why did you decide to get into this industry? I mean, it's not for everyone for sure. So.
No.
Give us a little bit of feedback on how and just background on how that decision was made, and how did it lead you where you are right now.
Yeah, so my mother actually owned a bridal shop in the Twin Cities for 25 years. So it was just the family business, and I remember going there after school and helping and just learning everything I could, not only about the wedding industry and the dresses, and a little bit of a girly girl, so just the tulle and the sparkles and just the magic behind planning a wedding. I mean, I fell in love with the industry from day
Mm-hmm.
one, and I couldn't get enough of it. And ended up working there, full time after high school and college. I ended up connecting with these two entrepreneurs, Mike Danielson and
Mm-hmm.
Charles Eide. They had
Mm-hmm.
started, this is back in 2011, 2012. They had started a company called Forever TV. And
Mm.
they would just have a small little side business. They're also the owners of EideCom, who I also work with
Mhm.
now,
Yeah.
so sister companies. But they were going around, they had a lot of friends in the wedding industry, and they're going around making these short video clips. And this is
Mhm.
before YouTube is what it is today. And they make these short little behind the scenes videos of small businesses, just to give people a little bit of insight into the
Mhm.
people behind the brand. And if you guys, for those of you listening, can go back about 8 to 10 years, marketing was very, very different. The wedding magazine still dominated the advertising world. And if you didn't have money for the back page of that magazine, you weren't getting the same amount of leads as maybe the small
Yeah.
ad. And so by them creating these little videos and sending a host in and going, "Hi, Susie, tell us a little bit about your bakery." And you go, "Well, I'm Susie. I start baking. This is what I really." Brides started to fall in love with being able to see the people behind the
Yeah.
brand versus just a magazine ad. Um,
Yeah.
and this YouTube channel just exploded. And so when I met these guys, they said, "Look, we started this thing on the side. It's growing like crazy. We want someone to run it and build this, someone
Mhm.
that knows the industry." And again, growing up with, my mother, who was a small business owner, and seeing the need to help these small businesses get that voice, right? And it
Yeah.
almost levels the playing field a little bit when you start playing in the social media world and you start utilizing other tools like video to really share
Mhm.
your message of what makes you unique. Because if
Yeah.
everyone keeps running around going, "I'm the best photographer," no, I'm the best photographer, then then it's a game on price. Right?
Yeah.
Because if everyone's saying they're the best, then the bride's just going to pick whoever is cheapest.
Yeah. Yeah.
But really, at the end of the day, and I think this plays into the event world and the corporate side too, people don't always just want to work with the cheapest. They want to work with someone who actually cares, like genuinely cares about them.
Yeah.
And that's, I think, what gave us such an advantage was we were helping brides find great, honest, hardworking people that they could
Mhm.
hire for their wedding. But the bigger side of it, and this is what sold me, the bigger side of it was we were helping these small business owners have a voice, but
Yeah.
we were also encouraging them, empowering them, educating them of how to market their business better. I mean, when I
Mhm.
started with now it's called Forever Bride. It was called Forever TV. Instagram didn't even exist yet, and there's a really hard transition for these businesses to go from just paper advertising or even running
Yeah.
ads in the newspaper to now having to learn a whole new platform, and no one was helping them. So that's
Yeah.
really the side piece came from Forever Bride, was not just a resource for brides, but really educating these business owners into this new world.
Absolutely. And I feel like you guys were definitely at the forefront of that. New generation of marketing, having this, I think you guys were calling it community marketing,
Mhm.
and also the ability to highlight a lot of those small businesses that otherwise would not have had the knowledge or the tools, to at their fingerprint really to do anything about their marketing. And I think marketing, it's always, unless you're a marketing professional, it's kind of hard for any small business owner to also deal with, because you're like, I'm already doing so many things. That's the last thing I want to do. But at the same time, it's so important because that's what's going to generate, a lot of those leads. And you say, it was funny because, 12 years ago, that was a challenge. Well, it's still a challenge
Yes.
today. You'd be surprised, like even with Instagram and Facebook ads and Google ads and all the other stuff that you can do today, it's still a challenge. If anything, I think it's even more of a challenge because now you're competing on such a wider, larger market, because everybody's now online, right?
Mhm.
And I was just thinking of, like, for example, just as simple as my daycare lady that takes care of my little one. She didn't even have like a Google My Business page, for her daycare. And I was like, you need to have a Google My Business page. She's like, I don't know. I just have a Yelp. It's like, nobody uses Yelp anymore. Like, what is that? It's like so old.
Well, we
So
sometimes had to be that voice of reason. We're saying, like, there are
yeah,
no excuses anymore. Like
exactly.
just even having a LinkedIn page for your business, it's a free resource. You don't have to
It
use it all
is.
the time or post every single day. But it's
Yeah,
just
just
because
have
some
it.
girls are more Facebook girls versus Instagram girls. In the business world, some people might be more Twitter people versus LinkedIn.
Yeah,
And
that's
as a
right.
business, you should have both.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
should make yourself as available as possible. There are no excuses anymore. And if you don't know how to do something, you figure it
Yeah,
out.
or hire somebody to do it for you. I
Yes.
mean, going back to those small businesses, there's so many out there, and there's a lot of small businesses, women owners that I know personally, that's their side hustle or their full-time hustle, whatever it is like, if you need some help, there's so many connections that you could make just by asking. It's like, hey, do you know someone that does this? Because I'm challenged and I need some help, and I think it goes back to, even like as we're talking about this new climate of events, virtual and now hybrid going in 2021, because for sure, I believe that that's really the future for events as we move
Mhm.
forward. There's a lot of, I feel like event planners that were just standing back, and event professionals thinking, well, I'm just going to wait for this to come back to normal and I'm not going to do anything about it. Instead of just reaching out, it's like, hey, who's doing events these days, like virtual events, like who, let's learn from each other. Let's like figure out
Yes.
like, how are we going to do this and how can we support and help each other, and I feel like the organizations and event planners that have done it, they actually have an advantage right now because, they go into 2021, not just with like no knowledge whatsoever, just seeing what others have done, but with that experience. Yeah, we've done it. And now we can actually improve on what we've done in 2020 and do it even better,
Yeah. And that goes back to the community marketing concept. There's power when we work together. There's more than enough business to go around. And if you can create
Absolutely.
those relationships, learn about what other people are doing, learn from other people's mistakes, learn about, more specifically what their specialties are. So that way you can be a resource to your client, and help direct them in other areas. There's more to marketing than just shoving an ad in someone's face.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I mean, it's so much more than just traditional marketing tactics that used to be enough, just in the years past, but not so much now to really make a difference for your business. Well, that's fantastic. So I guess my next question is, because you come from such a heavy marketing business, then format and model, what is the secret of growing your business in today's climate?
Oh, let me just pick one secret too.
Right? The secret to like overcome them all.
I know, like, are we charging people for me to give my secret away? In my experience, I mean, I wish I could say there's just one secret, and I'm going to give it to you right now. And if I tell you this one secret, your life is going to change, and you're going to make $1 million. It's, in my experience, it's a couple different things. Number one, it's all about relationships. Number one, if you aren't spending time every single day reaching out to new people and genuinely wanting to learn about them and how you can serve them and how you could, help them in some way. And then number two, fostering the relationships that you already have. I think life is about relationships, and business is more than just making money. It's about helping people. It's about solving problems, right? It's about sharing a message. The second thing is being consistent. Being consistent in who you are, the message that you're constantly speaking, the life that you're living on social media, is that consistent with the message that you're saying you are on LinkedIn? And just, gosh, I'm going to try not to swear. Gosh, darn it, don't give up. Every single day you get your butt out of bed, you put on some red lipstick and you go and you put your best effort in. That's I actually wrote a really beautiful article about my mother, who is I learned so much from her about being a business owner, being an entrepreneur, being a friend first, right?
Yeah.
And I wrote this really beautiful article, and I think the best thing I learned from her was just keep showing up.
Yeah.
Keep showing up every single day. Not every day is going to be lovely and exciting, but you can make the choice to show up with the right attitude, to show up on time, to again, be consistent in what you're doing on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah.
Especially on those hard days. Because the world's going to test you. Life is going to test you. And if you only show up on the easy days, if you only show up on the good days, you are not making it anywhere. I guarantee it.
And there's something to be said about that resilience that is built through some of those challenging moments and seasons, in life and in business in general, not just personal, and I feel like it's so important to have definitely that growing mindset that, I will definitely put my best effort in today and learn from, whatever lessons, mistakes that I've done yesterday, because otherwise, if you just repeat the same thing, it's also, very much so the definition of insanity, like try to do the same thing and expect different results. That never works, right? It's so important to see that. And I feel like more than anything, that concept has been tested in 2020 for a lot of people that had to learn the hard way. It's like, this is serious now. Am I really doing this for real, or is it going to break me and shred me to pieces, because it's been challenging for sure. So I guess from your experience or your mom's experience, as you were building your business from the ground up, what was the best way for you to build this referral network then? Was it, you definitely mentioned relationships and community building, and any other tips you want to, or things that you want to add to that?
One of the most important things I've learned as a leader, in order to get people excited, to inspire people, to get people to band together, as humans, we naturally want to feel included. We want to feel like we're part of something. Go back to your worst childhood memory, and it probably stemmed from being left out or feeling left out or having someone tell you that you're not welcome. And I think as humans, there's something so special when you can create a group and say, you are welcome here. You are special. What your opinion matters, your business matters. I want to learn about you. You are part of something. And, you know, and with us, you know, we started to create almost by accident. You know, we had the website, we had the digital, you know, literally it's a virtual expo.
Yeah.
So we started putting together these networking events, and we started to make our own fun hashtags, and people started to meet each other. We created a private Facebook group for businesses to get to know each other. Because one of the things you'll quickly learn, whether it's in the wedding industry or the corporate event industry, is you'll quickly look, if you look through all of the clients that you worked with in the past 2 years, I bet that at least half of them came in as a referral from either a friend, a family member, or a past client.
Yeah.
Not all of them came in from advertising. So if you think of networking is almost the new marketing.
Yeah.
And so to educate people on that coming to a networking event, being uncomfortable, you know, a lot of the times, like when I go to networking events, I don't have a wingman. I don't have like a buddy to go with. And when I was younger, that was really hard for me. And I kept showing up, even though it was awkward and I didn't know anybody. And it's so hard to be at an event by yourself and walk up to someone and go, hi, what's your name? It's so weird. But when you do it over and over and over again, just like learning any new skill, the first time you pick up a guitar, it sounds horrible. It's awkward. You don't know where to put your fingers. But eventually, the more you do it. And so when we start creating this community and people created their own hashtag, it was hashtag Forever Bride Tribe. They invented it.
Yeah.
And they would start tagging each other in posts, and they would start referring business to each other. And then they get that taste of getting more business from their friends and referrals than they do from their advertising. So then it was like the networking events became more important than even having a listing on our website. You know, and now we're taking that same technology, and this is what I get super excited about. We've taken that same technology, and this is where the mutate came in, right?
Yeah.
The same technology and the software that we built at Forever Bride, we're now creating it for corporate events all over the world.
Yeah.
It's called Second Stage. I'll send you a link if you'd like to share it.
I will definitely put in the podcast, the episode notes. You know, there's a lot of platforms out there going on 200 now. I don't know. It's like the number I lost count. But one thing that's different, I feel like, about Second Stage is the fact that it's built by an event production for event professionals. And a lot of the platforms out there are built by software professionals, which don't necessarily have the same understanding of events as, you know, an event production has. Because let's be honest, like we've done events and we've been doing events for years, like knowing exactly what an event needs is our number one tribe knowledge. Before we move any further, I wanted to give a quick shout out to our main sponsor, Trifan Events, which is a boutique event planning and production agency that will come alongside you, offering personalized event planning and technical support, strategic event design, production and technology management, and flawless execution for live, virtual, and hybrid events. The team at Trifan Events is passionate about planning and producing event experiences that get people involved with true moments of interaction, engagement, and co-creation, while offering white glove treatment throughout the entire planning process, enabling you to reach your event goals with the use of creativity, production tools, and event technology. To find out how Trifan Events can plan and produce your event become memorable, go to trifanevents.com.
It is. I know it sounds so cliche, like Second Stage, made by event people for event people. Like it's so
but
cheesy,
it is, right?
But
it's fantastic.
Is. You know, and you and I had such a great chat earlier about like events are not just about sharing a message, right? If you think of any event, it comes down to its core of like sharing a message, whether it's a gala, whether it's a conference, a trade show, you know, like an internal sales meeting. An event is sharing a message. But if it's just sharing a message, then why do we need to get together in person? Why do we need to get dressed up? Why do we have fancy food? Why the need for the beautiful lights, right? An event needs to make people feel something. An event needs to connect people in a certain way. It has to, at the end of this event, your audience should leave different than when they arrived. And that's what we're trying to still create. Now, don't get me wrong. There's, again, love in-person events, and I know we're going to get back there soon, but what we're trying to do is we're trying to create a very simple experience so we can still share that feeling, so we can still have something special that the audience has experienced versus, again, just shoving a message in somebody's face. People don't like that.
Yeah, and having that opportunity to connect and co-create moments of unique moments that usually it's so much easier to do them in person. I think is definitely going to be the one thing that's going to set apart a lot of those event platforms that are almost like popping up like mushrooms after rain. But it's so important. I feel like that has definitely been one of the challenges of 2020 with virtual events, and now that we're transitioning into this new reality of hybrid events, because hopefully we will meet in person, even though it's going to be on a micro smaller scale, because we're not going to be able, not anytime soon that I see, we're going to be able to shove 800 people in a ballroom, like we used to before. Is going to have that live stream element to every event. So I remember actually going back to just a little quick to weddings. In 2009, when I got married, there was no concept of a virtual wedding in 2009. But because the majority of my family were in Europe, and unfortunately they didn't receive their visa to come and celebrate with us, I had to figure out how am I going to include them in my own wedding as I'm planning it. And, yeah, sure, friends are great, love them, and all 300 of them that were there, but my family was not there. And that was a huge, upset, a moment of like, oh my gosh, I can't believe that they actually didn't get their visa. So the way, I came about, even though at the time I wasn't even calling it anything, was like, let's figure out how I'm going to stream this wedding to them so they can see and participate, live as we're doing this. So that's what we ended up doing. Like, we live streamed the ceremony and part of the reception, and there was no label. There was no, huge big deal about it. It was just meeting a necessity and solving a problem and having them part of the wedding, which was fantastic. Yeah, I didn't have a platform. We didn't have a chatting function. It was basically, I don't know, Ustream, whatever I was using at the time. That was like, was the thing to stream on. And I feel like that's something that a lot of events and weddings had to take on this approach of like, okay, we can't meet in person anymore. Now, what are we going to do? Like, how are we going to solve this problem? And all the event professionals and production houses and AV houses that were able to mutate, using your term, and be able to offer this service, live streaming and producing events virtually, have the advantage in 2021 because they've already done a good amount of them in 2020. And the same thing can apply, to weddings. I feel like that's a little hard because, when you think of a wedding, the last thing you want is to have some sort of a digital virtual wedding. But, it might not be for anyone, but at the same time, you do solve the problem of not being able to reach, someone that is in a different country, different location, different, who knows, in a situation where they can't get out of the house. And it's been great for me personally that I was able to include my family, and we kind of, we joke about how having 2 wedding dates kind of gives us the ability to, and the excuse to pop the champagne twice and take ourselves out for a fancy anniversary dinner 2 times a year.
Always.
I mean, how many couples can say that?
Celebrate. Extra gifts. Don't forget the gifts.
Absolutely, yes. So I guess my question to you is, what is your opinion on this trend? Have you, coming from that wedding background, do you have any thoughts on like pros and cons that you like to highlight for anyone that's listening that might be like, hey, I think this is the year we're gonna tighten up? I mean,
I think I already have 4 weddings on the books for 2021, and I could not be more excited. My husband, oh, my poor husband gets dragged. I love weddings. They're like my Super Bowl. I mean, I love weddings. I'm the biggest nerd there is. And we just actually added our fourth to today. One of the girls in the office just got engaged over the holiday. And
Oh my goodness. So amazing.
I know this is going to sound bad. And I know I'm supposed to be, oh, we're going to get through this together. This sucks. I do not like this lockup. I understand that we need to be safe, and I respect that. And events are going to come back, and I'm so ready for when they do, and especially for weddings. I think that we can go virtual and hybrid for corporate events and sales meetings and conferences. Absolutely. It's a great option. In fact, we had a really successful event this past October. I think I shared this with you. We had a
Yes.
nice event in October.
I think it's one of the first hybrids that you guys had in 2020.
Super successful hybrid event in October of 2020. We've worked with this client for years. It's a big leadership conference for their network. It's a network of a couple thousand people across the country. They normally bring in about 800 people. They do it across the country at fancy resorts and spoil them, and lots of networking in the evenings. Well, they said, okay, we think that we're going to be able to do a hybrid, because in Phoenix at this time, we were able to have 450 people.
Wow.
You can imagine how big the conference center was, because everybody was socially distanced. We had masks. Everybody was very safe.
So this basically would be a venue that normally would probably accommodate like 1,000 people. And then,
Yes. They had the main stage, they had the breakout rooms. And praise God, no one got sick. Everybody was, healthy, no cases. But we were able to have 450 people in person. And we did, the production, it was beautiful. And all of our event guys were so happy to be working again. And the people at the hotel were high-fiving, and we're so happy to have you here. And we used Second Stage to live stream to an additional 1,500 people online for this 3 days.
Yeah.
It was a wild success, and they were seeing everything in real time, the main stage, the breakout rooms. They were able to see the trade show floor, but from a virtual perspective and not virtual reality. Don't get me started on the virtual reality platforms. They do not work. I will tell you, I've done the research. I've done the case studies.
I guess you're not a fan of the avatars.
Just need the information. But the client actually has already, we had some really great case studies, and they said, look, we already want to book this for next year, even if the world goes back to normal. 2020 didn't even happen. We're still doing hybrid, because it was such a success for our brand. We were able to reach so many more people that maybe didn't even want to travel, even if there weren't travel.
Yeah, exactly.
Huge success. So I definitely think one of the biggest wins that is going to come out of this for corporate events is hybrid is such a win. Now, the hard part is if you're doing hybrid, it's almost like producing two events. It can be almost twice as expensive.
It can be, absolutely.
One crew, one team doing the in-person, and you have a whole separate crew and team live streaming in real time.
And it has to be mentioned, because I feel like a lot of people do not understand this concept. I mean, we production people get it, because we've done production behind the scenes for in-person events before, and we've done live streaming for virtual events. And now we know, having to marry those two, you don't just have one guy doing two things, because honestly, yes, in most cases that might work, but now there's totally two different formats that you need to deal with, and you need to accommodate, and you need to be prepared for, right? So the challenges are in so many ways twice as a in-person event would be for any production, but at the same time having the equipment and the labor to support that, and the technicians and engineers and everyone that's behind the scenes that normally be like, oh, there's already a lot of people behind the scenes. Well, double that up. And same with the cost. Yes. Because if you want a successful event, you need to take those things in consideration.
When it's making your online audience feel just as special, right? Yes. So let's say you spend all this time planning this beautiful in-person event, and it's the linens and the uplighting and the beautiful laminated name tags, and it's, the cocktail reception the night before. And then you set up an iPhone on a stick doing Zoom for your conference for your 1,500 people virtually.
No, that's not going to work.
But what a disrespectful way to treat your virtual audience. Who
Exactly.
needs
You
to
have
spend
to make sure
just
you
as much time? Mm-hmm.
they feel included. And I feel like one of the things that came out of 2020 is just that, like realizing how important is to make the digital audience feel included in your event. And if there's lessons that we've learned is that, and how do we do that now as we transition into, hybrid events? Because, even have to think of like the fact that you're going to have a moderator separately, just being there for your audience, for the online audience, and all the digital screens, and all the platform, and anything that enables that audience to feel like they're included, and maybe having those VIP receptions that are just specifically planned for the online audience is so important. And it goes into the whole strategy of like, how do you make them feel special and feel like they belong, even though they're not physically present there.
Mhm. Well, and one of the things in our research too, so I'm a total, numbers and science nerd. I want to know not only how things work, but why did they work,
Yeah,
right?
the
And
data. Yeah.
the term Zoom fatigue is thrown around so much now. A year ago we didn't even know what that term meant. But there is something very real about Zoom fatigue. And what that means actually is when you're looking at something very low quality, right? Maybe it's skipping a little bit, it's blurry, the words aren't quite lining up with how her mouth is moving. It's very frustrating for our eyes and our brain, and we literally get tired, right? Now, how can you get tired after being on Zoom for 2 hours, and yet you can binge Netflix all weekend? There's a difference. Netflix or your favorite movie, you're going to the movie theater, it's in HD. There's a lot of money that was put into making sure that the audio is crisp, that the lighting is just perfect, right? And so when you choose to cut corners on a live stream, you will literally bore to death your audience. They will not keep that attention that they need. If you spend the time and the
Yeah.
money to make sure that this looks crisp, this
Yeah.
looks professional, this has beautiful, for those of you that are watching on YouTube or this video, you can see the nice, trim, so you can see where we're at and the names. That's what we need, right?
Yeah.
As a virtual audience. Think of when you watch the news. The news is
Yeah.
not just a big talking head. The news has things going on top. The news has the person's name on the bottom with maybe their title, maybe a little thing in the corner with the
Yeah.
weather.
Yeah.
We need that engagement. And so
Yeah.
we have to keep putting ourselves in the audience's shoes, going, what do they need in order to stay connected? And if anything, you need to work harder to keep their attention. Because
Absolutely.
unlike an audience that's locked in the ballroom, with your virtual audience, you're competing against the dog that wants to go outside. You're competing against the cell phone that's ringing. You're competing against the Facebook message bubbles that are popping up. So you almost have to work twice
Absolutely.
as hard to keep that attention.
And it goes to that, high production value that you assign to your event that your brand can be proud of. And honestly, yeah, sure, in the beginning, having a Zoom meeting, it was acceptable to call it an event. Sure, you can still do meetings over Zoom. I'm not against Zoom. Sure, I can do a lot of meetings over Zoom, but calling it an event, it's a completely different thing. It's like, let's not call it an event. And the expectation of having that high production value, I feel like it's so much higher now than it was in the beginning of this pandemic, when everybody started like getting online and trying to produce their event one way or another, right? So it goes to what you said, like it's having now also the expectation of a production. And like you said, that the Netflix shows that we watch, the TV shows that we watch, they are produced so high. There's so much rehearsals going behind the scenes that you don't know about. There's so much, cues and text sheets that are followed that when you're looking at it, it feels like, oh, it's so easy to do. Yeah, if it was, everybody would actually have the same level of production to all their events, but it is not. That's why you need to look, for people and partners and vendors that can bring the same value to your event, so that not only that your event is successful and is produced well, but also you don't, like you said, bore your audience to that. And all they have to do is not even, be distracted by the dog. Just click the tab and they're gone. They're not staying, and it's something that has to be taught from the very, the first planning process. The first strategy for your event is like, yes, what is your why for your event? And that's going to lead all your decisions, for how you're going to produce that, and how you're going to touch your audience in a way that it really it adds value.
I would say actually one of the biggest lessons I have ever learned in business, and I hope whoever is listening that this is if there's only one thing that you take away from us, and me rambling on, let the professionals do what they're best at. And this is how I learned this lesson the hard way. I owned my own company in my early 20s, and I was still helping my mother at the bridal shop part-time. We needed a new website for my company. It was called Style and Grace. And I went to, literally, this is back in the day, I went to the paint store and I bought paint samples to get the exact colors that I wanted. I don't even think Pantone was a thing back then. And I got the exact colors that I wanted, and I took printer paper and I drew out how I wanted the website to look. When you click this button, I'd have a little arrow, and then it would go to this next piece of paper. And I went to this web company and I said, this is the website I want you to design. Here are the colors, here are the words, do it exactly like this. And they kind of bit their tongue and went, okay. And they made the website exactly the way I told them to. And it was horrible, but it was exactly the way I wanted it.
Yeah.
My mother, about a couple months later, needed a new website for her bridal shop. I went back to that same company and I said, hey, here's our budget. Here's our vision. Go. Same company, pretty much the exact same budget. That website looked 100 times better because I let the experts do what they were good at. And you have to remember, when you're hiring someone, especially someone in the arts, right? They're a production company, they're a videographer, a photographer, a web designer. They're an artist.
Yeah.
And for you to go to an artist and say, do exactly this and don't stray from the plan, that's not what they're good at. They're good at saying, here's my vision. Here's the end goal. Go do your thing, have fun. And because you're giving them that free creative, freedom
license,
they're good at not only have fun, but they're probably going to give you more than anything you could have imagined.
Absolutely.
They're better at this. And so that's my piece of advice. If you're going to hire someone, give them the creative freedom to really do what they're good at, because I guarantee you it's going to turn out better than what you originally had planned.
Absolutely. I feel like some of the best events that I've worked on and planned and produced, and the ones that I've been most proud of, was when the client did just that. It's like, here's what we want to accomplish. Here's the vision, but you go to town with how this is going to actually look in reality. And, from, the lights, the decor, the background, the backdrop, the content, all of that. It's so important because you're now building, this event that it's all within the same branding, within the same color design, like you said, your website and everything. And it's funny because you mentioned website, because I've had that similar experience before with my own website. And I'm really hands-on, when it comes to a lot of things. And some things I'm like more hands-on than other things. But it's like one of those things where like, okay, that's not my specialty. Yes, I have a lot of great ideas, but I probably shouldn't just start to build it from the ground up, because I'm only going to pull my hairs or just, have white hairs growing up just as I'm working on it. Because of the frustration of like, and how much longer is that going to take me? Because that's not what I do, right?
And what is your time worth? And what is your stress level worth to be looking over their shoulder all the time? If you hire the right person, you will actually, even though they might cost more, in the long run, it will save you more.
And it will save you time. And that's, time is something that you don't get back. Mm-hmm. Sure, you can gain and lose money, but time you will never get back. And that's so important, to consider.
Money's common, time is not.
Absolutely. So I guess one of the as we're coming to a close here, I just want to get a little bit of the feel on what, from your vantage point of view, what are the leading brands in the event industry budgeting and planning for in-person and hybrid events in 2021?
Right now, in the first quarter, we're doing a lot of 100% virtual. We're doing a lot of award ceremonies. We're doing a lot of sales conferences. Companies that used to fly all 1,200 of their salespeople in for a big fabulous weekend are now having to do everything virtual. And how do we still make them feel very special without letting them sit by a pool, during their off time? So we're spending a lot of time putting together some of those events, and right away in second and third quarter, I do believe we have some hybrid events, and I think we've got one in the fall. It's a full live event.
Yeah.
So, and same thing with weddings. We've got a pulse on the wedding industry still. My team is still running Forever Bride, and we have actually a private Facebook group just for brides. It's so cute. There's thousands of brides in here, and of course, it's been such a resource for them when COVID hit to be like, oh my gosh, what are you doing? What are you doing? They're sharing ideas and just again, going back to community, just having that feeling that you're not alone, going through this. People, the weddings I have coming up, they're all in person. They're all going to be 100 people plus. I think people are ready. Yes, be smart. If you're not, you're not feeling well or you feel at risk, absolutely be smart. But I think it's important for all industries that we do start to push in person, that we do start to be smart, but we do start to do what we can to bring live events, or at least hybrid events, back.
Yeah. And, as an organizer, definitely there's a lot of responsibility to make sure that you make it safe for the in-person people, that are going to be there. But, and it goes to also, with whatever location you're at, what are the rules where you're at, like for us, where we are right now in Idaho, that's basically the same common understanding and goal. It's like, let's get people in person as soon as we can, being aware of all the safety protocols in place as well, for sure.
Well,
so
I will, if it's okay, one more thing. I
absolutely.
will say that the biggest advantage that we've seen with doing a hybrid event, so we're based in Minneapolis, Minnesota. We had an event in December, and it was going to be a hybrid event with the live portion being at the Minneapolis Convention Center, which is a huge convention center. I mean, just absolutely massive. So we had been planning for the in-person piece, and then we had been planning for the virtual piece with using second stage and, live streaming the main stage and then the breakouts and the trade show floor. It was either 7 or 8 days before this event, and we're talking thousands of people.
Yeah.
The convention center said, nope, you can't do your event here anymore at all.
Oh, man.
Yeah. And had we not had the virtual piece in place, the event would have not happened, and our client would have been out a lot of money because.
And if you've ever planned an expo or a trade show, there's a lot of money that go into it before anyone even enters, the door.
Yeah. And so just within 7 days, it was all hands on deck. We helped, we actually helped them. We kind of partnered, kind of became part of their company for a little bit to help them transition all their in-person people into go virtual, right? The speakers were planning on coming in person. Okay, how do we get the speakers, onto the virtual platform? Help the people that were going to be on the trade show floor only live, get them set up on second stage. And it's doable. And it was so great to have that to fall back on. The event went perfect. It was 100% virtual, and it was lovely. Huge success.
So I guess, goes back to that lesson, that, or takeaway, basically. If you're going to plan a in-person event, sure, that's fantastic, but do have a backup plan or have that hybrid, live streaming component so that the plan is there. And if you need to switch tracks, you can easily do it in as little as few days, where we know it takes more than 7 days to plan an actual event, right? So having that infrastructure already in place is number one benefit from going those two tracks and knowing, okay, we're either going to marry them or we're going to go this way or that way. We already have the plan, and it's going to be so much easier to fall on one, A or B, So what would you say, as we're coming to an end with our discussion here, what advice would you give to someone that's looking into getting into the event business, but also, possibly to a brand new event organizer that hasn't done anything in 2020? how should they look at 2021? How should they approach this ever-changing business climate?
Mm-hmm. I would dive in and learn as much as you can. I would reach out to the people that are doing things that you aspire to do, or people that you aspire to be like someday. Reach out to them. See if you can do a Zoom with them, ask them questions, follow them on LinkedIn, even offer to shadow or help, or, get involved as much as you can. Building those relationships is huge, but just putting yourself out there in every way possible. Again, going back to excuses, there's really not a lot of excuses anymore, between LinkedIn and, online networking events. There are so many resources for you to learn and so many resources for you to build connections.
Absolutely. So, Ashley, where can people find you online, or where are the platforms that you hang on these days, so that if they have any more, additional questions, or a way to contact you or follow you, where would you, where are you these days?
I'm a huge LinkedIn nerd. Obviously, with my social media background, Instagram is more of like my personal playground. But I'm a total LinkedIn nerd. So you're welcome. I'm pretty easy to find. I'm very public. It's Ashley Hawks. The last name is spelled just like the bird. My whole mission, and I'm very grateful for the position that I'm in, both with Forever Bride and with EideCom, as sister companies. There's no way that I would be where I am without dozens and dozens of people giving me space, taking me under their wing, being patient to teach me and give me opportunities. So that's my mission, with where I'm at, that I'm very blessed. I'm more than happy to do the same for others. You can't be given such a great gift and then not be willing to do the same thing for others. So I'm more than happy to answer questions and to be a resource and to serve people however I can.
I love that. And it's such an important mindset to have as we're all growing and learning and figure this out, because I don't think nobody that I know has all the questions answered, right? So thank you so much for joining me today on the air, and for sharing, from your wisdom and your vast knowledge as an event industry woman entrepreneur. It's been such a pleasure and such an honor having you. Thank you, Ashley.
This was wonderful. Thank you so much for the opportunity. This was very fun.